that a lot of girls can learn from is that you don't always have to go the conventional route to get to where you want to be, which is really cool.
Yeah, thanks. That's kind of a big part of the message that I want to share is everybody has their story and their path, and everybody kind of has a place and something that they can bring to the table, I guess. So I didn't have a conventional route, but I had an amazing time as Miss Rodeo Canada, and I'm so glad that I decided to go for the title, even though I had so many fears going into it. I'm so glad that I took the leap of faith, and I just hope that other young women can kind of embrace their fears and go for whatever they have in the bottom of their heart, because there's kind of a reason we have those stirrings.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good thing for girls to know, too, that it's okay to be nervous and to be afraid, because it is a big leap of faith. You're definitely putting yourself out there quite a bit and have to be very vulnerable. So, yeah, I think that that's a really great message for any girls that are listening today at all, if they're wanting to go further in their rodeo queen career, or if they're just wanting to start out, is that it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you work hard and definitely stay true to what you want to do. I think that that's a good message that you can share as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head.
Perfect.
Because the biggest thing, right, it would be worse to not try. That as long as you try, you should be proud of yourself. But the only reason one should ever be disappointed in themselves is for not taking that leap.
Yes, exactly. I like that a lot for all the ladies out there. That's definitely something to remember when you're heading into the rodeo queen world. So for yourself, you've done quite a bit of traveling, both as a rodeo queen and in your personal life. I know that you've went to some pretty cool places. So what are some of your favorite places that you have been to during your travels?
Oh, it's so hard. This is such a hard question. One that will always stick out for me was getting to travel down to Florida as Miss Rodeo Canada. They had a ton of other state queens, so just about every state or several states has a state representative that goes on to run for Miss Rodeo America. So it was really fun getting to meet a whole bunch of them at the same time. And, I never really considered Florida as like a real southern state, even though it is the most southern state. But it was so fun to experience a bit of that southern hospitality. They were all about the sweet tea and making me feel at home and, good old roast.
Yeah.
So it was fun to hang out down there.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I've seen a few, followed some rodeo queens as they've went down to Florida, and it's a very large social gathering down there. There's a lot of different kinds of queens. There's state queens and there's national title holders, and then they have local rodeo queens. So it's definitely a big event, and it was probably really cool to head down there as Miss Rodeo Canada and meet all the state queens and everything.
Yeah, it was really neat, especially like I mentioned before, coming from a world where I didn't really have a ton of exposure to rodeo queens going down and just seeing they went on for miles. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's a big world of rodeo queening down there. And you went to Vegas this year, too, as Miss Rodeo Canada. And I'm always curious of what Las Vegas is like for rodeo queens, because I went this past year as well, and I've kind of watched if a few were at the trade shows or wherever they might be. So I'm curious of what the experience of Las Vegas is like as a rodeo queen.
Wow, well, Vegas is a blur. It's the best of times for everyone, especially during the National Finals Rodeo. Yeah, it was incredible. I spent some time with my sponsors doing some autograph signings, and I did a viewing party just about every night. So people would come to the MGM and watch the NFR on the big screen, and we would kind of do fun games in between that, and just going around, meeting people. I did get to wander around the trade shows a little bit. But one of my favorite parts, gosh, now that you've put me on the spot, I can't remember the name, but I had dinner just about every night in this. It was kind of like the room of the legends, where all of these old card holders came and had dinner. So they were like big names, like Lane Frost's parents, and some of the very first contestants in the PRCA were all having dinner together, and it was so humbling and overwhelming to be in a room with so many incredible people. I just wish that I had done way more history reading, because I knew that I had so many incredible people at my fingertips and couldn't even, do justice to all of their stories.
Yeah, I bet that is an incredible event, and I bet that they have some pretty good dinner stories to share too. That was probably a really fun moment for you. And yeah, I agree that would be very humbling as well, to just sit and listen to all of those stories that they probably had.
Yeah, it was really neat. And it was fun, Sage Kimsey's dad is in there and he's cheering on his boy. So it was just kind of neat to see everybody's, they're still connected. Of course they are.
Yeah, still connected and still cheering on all of the contestants that are competing today. It's not something that they walked away from, obviously. They're still involved and still attached to that rodeo life and that Western life as well, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super cool. That would be a fun event. So my last question that I have for you is something that I've always been curious about when rodeo queens hand off their crowns, especially state queens and national title holders. They kind of hand off their crowns and then they go about their normal lives. And a few years later, you wonder, well, I wonder what they're doing now. I wonder what's going on in their lives now that they don't hold a rodeo queen title anymore. So what does life after the crown look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's the practical stuff. I'm working from home and I'm finishing my education degree. But I think this daunting, what does life after the crown question, that's been on my mind since before I gave up the crown, because I do want to stay involved. And it's so interesting, when you're a rodeo queen, it's very obvious what your role is and what your place is. And afterwards, you do kind of have to find your place. And that can be scary and it can be exciting, because I think we all have to just remind ourselves that there is a place for me and there is a place for my voice, and there's something that I can bring. So, I'm still, Alyssa, trying to figure out exactly what that will look like for me. Even just the simple fact of holding the title has brought kind of a bunch of new rodeo fans into the rodeo family. My immediate family is way more plugged in. My friends are way more plugged in to following rodeo and the athletes. So I hope that I can continue kind of to be an ambassador on that level. But also, yeah, I don't know. I would like to maybe get myself a fancy little breakaway. I'm not a roper, but I've roped the dummy a little bit, so I would eventually like to be able to work up to entering somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess my big dream, my dad probably doesn't know this, but I would really love to do. He team roped in college, so to team rope with my dad would be full circle. That would be a dream come true.
Oh yeah, that would be a cool moment for everybody to see that, like your family and your friends and people that have followed your journey. That would be would be cool. It definitely would bring it full circle, just like you said. And I like what you said about that once the crown comes off, you're kind of sitting there and like, okay, what is going to be my job now in rodeo? Because I think that we all kind of face that once the crown comes off. And if we still want to stay involved, we have to kind of get creative of how what we want our role to look like. So I definitely agree with you on that it can be a little bit daunting for sure.
But look at you with your podcast. It looks like you're doing an awesome job.
We're starting here and see where it goes.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jaden, for joining me today. Is there anything in closing that you want to say at all before we sign off here?
Actually, there is. I've spoken to a lot of different rodeo committees, and I'm just going to go there. A lot of some people that I have spoken with say like, oh yeah, rodeo queens, I have my thoughts and my opinions. And it's funny, and a lot of the time they won't want to get into the conversation because they won't want to offend me. But I would like to know, a rodeo queen is free marketing for you, and we just want to do a good job. And I find a lot of rodeo committees really they undervalue, maybe that's the wrong word. I think they maybe don't give as much responsibility as you could. And the rodeo queen, if you give her lots of responsibility, she'll step up to the plate. And if you give her a little, then you're not embracing the full opportunity she has to really elevate your event. So I would encourage rodeo queens, talk to me if you have ideas about how we can better serve you. There are so many of us that would like to listen. And of course, each of us comes with our own talents and range of abilities, but really we come and we want to do a good job for you. So, take advantage of that, especially as we kind of are going to be recovering, building up sponsorship after COVID. A rodeo queen is kind of a win-win because it's development, it's personal development for young women, and like I mentioned, it's virtually free marketing for a rodeo. So it's just such a gem that I would encourage people to use.
Yeah, for sure. And to utilize rodeo queens, even now that we haven't had as many rodeos, that once we can start having rodeos again, rodeo queens need to be going into schools when it's safe to do so and doing lots of promotional videos and photos and those sorts of things. And free marketing and ways to bring people in and talk to sponsors. A huge job I don't think that people realize is, like, when we were competing for Miss Rodeo Canada, a huge job for us was to go into sponsor booths and to sit with people and go talk to people in the viewing areas. And like, your job is to smooze with people, and it's an important role, and it's something that makes people comfortable and excited to be there. And I agree with you that sometimes we can be a little bit underutilized, and it's important moving forward to keep rodeo queens active.
Yeah, totally. And on the other hand, rodeo queens, I guess when the crown gets on your head, that's just when the work starts. So we've got to always work to be putting ourselves out there. Sometimes I know what it's like to be tired or to feel shy a certain day. The amount of times I reintroduce myself to the same cowboys, because they would show up at a rodeo with a ball cap on and not their cowboy hat, and I wouldn't recognize them. But it can feel really scary, or you might feel vulnerable or awkward a lot of the times putting yourself into these situations, but it pays off so much more than you could know.
Yes, for sure. It's a great opportunity and a great way to grow as an individual. And Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you said today about your journey of being a rodeo queen, and I think that